Yeah, Uday, and thank you for joining us today. Today, again, we are with us an art flowing expert and an officer of the Vedic Dhamma Sansthan. Today, we are going to discuss the knowledge talk which was given by His Holiness Gurudev Shri Shri Ravi Shankar Ji in Kashmir in the Edu Youth Meet. As we all know, Kashmir has been suffering from terrorism, unemployment, stone pelters, youth becoming restless. To solve all of these questions and issues, we have with us the expert from Art of Living and an officer of the Vedic Dhamma Sansthan. So let's begin our discussion. So, what was the central point of Gurudev's Edu Youth Meet in Kashmir? The spirit of the event was pure celebration of youth, hope, harmony, and the vibrant culture of Kashmir. When Gurudev walked onto the stage, the entire auditorium erupted with applause, not merely as a welcome to a global spiritual leader, but as a collective expression of Kashmir's longing for peace and transformation. Gurudev's presence immediately brought a sense of warmth. He began with poetry and humor, dissolving all tension. The youth felt seen, valued, and uplifted. Gurudev spoke of balance, confidence, unity, and the dream of a drug free Kashmir. His message was not heretical, it was deeply practical and directly connected to the struggles and aspirations of Kashmir students. Now, from a dharmic perspective, the deeper essence of the event was Shuddhi, a collective purification of intention and direction. The mantras in his speech, a society free from violence, a body free from disease, a mind free from confusion, echo the Upanishadic vision where the individual and society are aligned with Dharma. The youth of Kashmir have lived through challenges, yet their resilience is extraordinary. Gurudev acknowledged their pain, honored their strength, and guided them toward a future where healing is both emotional and cultural. Cultural, his welcome of Kashmir dance, culture, and language shows how spirituality respects and uplifts a regional identity. The event was not merely motivational, it was a spiritual reawakening. Now, Gurudev emphasized the dream of a drug free Kashmir. How do you interpret this? Jaydev Gurudev's call for a drug free Kashmir is both compassionate and urgent. Addiction steals the youth's vitality, clarity, and purpose. In Kashmir, where emotional wounds run deep, substances often become an escape. Gurudev's approach is not moral policing, it's about empowering youth with inner strength so that drugs lose all attraction through breathing techniques like Sudarshan Kriya, detox programs, youth clubs, and community initiatives. The art of living has already transformed lakhs of lives worldwide. Gurudev believes that when the mind is balanced and joyful, addiction fades naturally. His words in Kashmir were a pledge. We will see Kashmir free from drugs, a collective sankalpa taken with thousands of students. The dharmic lens sees addiction as a modern expression of tamas, a state of inertia and darkness. Gurudev's dream aligns perfectly with traditional Vedic psychology. A society progressing towards sattva must ensure that youth are not trapped in substances that cloud judgment. His message is significant because Kashmir's youth are highly talented, sensitive, and capable of leadership. Removing drugs is not only about health but about restoring the spiritual potency of an entire generation. In Vedic literature, the youth are the custodians of the future. Protecting them from self destruction is a sacred duty. Gurudev's initiatives bring a modern rehabilitation and ancient wisdom beautifully. Now, Gurudev spoke of maintaining balance in tough and happy times. How relevant is this to Kashmiri youth? This principle is at the heart of mental health. Kashmir has seen political conflict, social pressure, academic stress, and emotional uncertainty. The youth often swing between excitement and anxiety. Gurudev's teaching in life, you get tough times and happy times. Keep the balance of mind. It's not a philosophical statement, it's a survival toolkit. Balance comes from breath, awareness, and self confidence. When students practice even simple techniques like deep breathing and meditation, they develop emotional resilience, they stop reacting impulsively and start responding wisely. Gurudev wants every young Kashmiri to develop the inner stability that prevents depression, panic, and confusion. Now, our scriptures call this Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, equanimity is yoga. Gurudev was echoing the Gita's timeless wisdom. Kashmir's youth are brilliant, but the environment often challenges their mental steadiness. Emotional balancing is not suppression, it is refinement. In ancient times, students in Gurukulas learned breath control and contemplation before they learned grammar or mathematics. Today's education focuses only on the intellect, not on emotional mastery. Gurudev is restoring this lost dimension. His message is deeply relevant because balanced individuals become responsible citizens, visionary leaders, and compassionate human beings. Kashmir needs such youth now more than ever. Now, Gurudev said, accept people as they are. How does this principle apply in Kashmir's social environment? Jagadev, acceptance is one of Gurudev's most transformative principles in Kashmir, where identity, ideology, and cultural experiences vary widely. Acceptance becomes a powerful tool for harmony. Youth are often caught between traditional expectations, modern aspirations, and societal tensions. Gurudev's message, you cannot expect everyone to be like you, invites them to embrace diversity rather than fight it. Acceptance does not mean agreement, it means maturity. When students learn to accept their parents, peers, teachers, and even those with different viewpoints, emotional conflicts dissolve in out of living programs. Youth learn through breathwork that resistance tightens the mind, while acceptance relaxes it. A relaxed mind communicates better, forgives faster, and collaborates naturally. This principle also helps prevent groupism, polarization, and judgment, problems that hinder youth empowerment. Kashmiri students listening to Gurudev felt this message deeply because it acknowledged their lived experience. Now, from a Vedic standpoint, acceptance is rooted in the idea that every being is an expression of the divine. The Upanishads say, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, all this is Brahman. Thus, expecting others to conform to one's personal biases is ignorance or avidya. Kashmir's historical journey has created layers of misunderstanding among communities. Acceptance is the first step toward reconciliation. Gurudev's message is not political, it is spiritual. When youth accept differences in religion, language, and culture, they rise above narrow identities. Acceptance also reduces ego because ego thrives on comparison. Spiritual traditions of Kashmir, from Shaivism to Sufism, have always emphasized universal love. Gurudev was simply reconnecting youth to their own cultural roots. His approach blends ancient dharma with modern psychological insight, making acceptance a practical lived value. Now, Gurudev taught, do not be a football of others' opinions. Why is this important for young students today? Jagadev, yes, youth today are bombarded with opinions, social media judgments, peer pressure, family expectations, and public narratives. When Gurudev said, don't become a football of others' opinions, he was liberating students from mental slavery. Many Kashmiri youths feel pressure to fit into labels or stereotypes created by society. They often fear judgment and hesitate to express their true aspirations. Gurudev's teaching encourages inner strength. Listen to everyone, but decide with your own clarity. Art of Living programs train students to reduce overthinking, develop intuition, and build self confidence. When breath and emotions are stable, opinions lose their power to destabilize. Students become creators of their destiny rather than victims of influence. This message was extremely relevant in Kashmir, where societal expectations often dictate choices in education, career, and lifestyle. Gurudev empowered them to be thinkers, not reactors. Now, in dharmic psychology, external influence without internal clarity is a source of adharma. The Gita warns against asati, attachment to praise or criticism. Kashmiri youth, with their innate sensitivity and intelligence, can easily be swayed by emotional narratives. Gurudev's message restores Swadharma one's own path. A person rooted in their inner wisdom cannot be manipulated. Historically, great Kashmiri saints like Abhinav Gupta emphasized inner awareness over public approval. When Gurudev warns against becoming a football, he is echoing this lineage. Youth must cultivate discernment or viveka. Without it, society's noise drowns their intuition. With it, they rise as leaders. His message returns youth to the path of self mastery, where their actions arise from understanding, not influence. Now, Gurudev spoke about mistakes and forgiveness. How does this contribute to youth empowerment in Kashmir? Jai Gurudev, one of the most healing moments in the event was when Gurudev asked students, how many of you have made mistakes? And thousands raised their hands. This broke the fear of imperfection. Kashmiri youth often carry guilt for decisions made under pressure or emotional stress. Gurudev reminded them that mistakes are natural, not final. When we forgive ourselves, we stop being stuck. When we forgive others, we stop being bitter. He said, you tell others it's okay, forget it. Then why don't you tell yourself the same? This message gives students permission to breathe, reset, and move forward. Art of living techniques help young people release emotional baggage stored in the body. Once they let go, their energy becomes available for creativity, career, and dreams. Forgiveness turns pain into wisdom. Now, the Vedic tradition sees mistakes not as sins but as steps in learning. The word papa originally means that which takes you away from your potential. Forgiveness or Shama is considered a divine quality. Kashmir's own Saint Laleshwari taught that the heart becomes vast only when we let go of past wounds. Gurudev's emphasis on forgiveness restores this ancient value. Mistakes often create cycles of blame in families and communities. When youth learn to forgive, they break these cycles, they step into maturity. Forgiveness also reduces societal violence because anger dissolves at its root. Gurudev's teaching was not heretical, it was a psychological intervention wrapped in spiritual wisdom for Kashmiri youth. It opened the door to emotional liberation. Now, Gurudev emphasized confidence and faith that only the best will happen to you. How does this transform young minds? The Gurudev's statements have confidence and have faith that only the best will happen to you is much deeper than motivational positivity. It's a psychological reset. Kashmiri youth, like many students across India, often deal with uncertainty about career, competition, and future stability. Many grow up hearing messages of fear. What if you fail? What if things go wrong? Gurudev flips the narrative completely. He invites young people to trust life. When confidence is cultivated through breath work, meditation, and self awareness, the mind becomes fearless. Fear clouds intelligence, confidence sharpens it. At the Edu Youth Meet, students felt an immediate shift as if someone had removed an invisible burden from their shoulders. This belief generates enthusiasm, improves mental health, and ignites ambition. When youth believe that life supports them, they stop overthinking and start acting with clarity. Now, in the Vedic worldview, faith or the Shraddha is the root of all achievement. The Gita explicitly states, Shraddhavam labhate jnanam. The one who with the faith attains wisdom. Gurudev's message echoes this timeless principle. Kashmiri youth come from a land rich in spiritual tradition, yet the turbulence of recent decades has created layers of fear. Gurudev's words reawaken their inner power. Faith does not mean passivity, it means alignment with the cosmic intelligence that guides life. When you trust that the universe is fundamentally benevolent, their mind relaxes, creativity expands, and decision making becomes sharper. This mindset is essential for leadership, entrepreneurship, and social contribution. Gurudev was not simply asking them to think positive, he was restoring an ancient psychological truth. Confidence is the foundation of Dharma driven action. Now, Gurudev beautifully appreciated Kashmiri culture. What was the deeper message behind celebrating the region's identity? When Gurudev said Kashmir ki kaliyan khil gayi, it wasn't just a poetic remark, it was validation. For decades, Kashmir has often been spoken of only in the context of conflict, but Kashmir is a treasure of art, music, language, and hospitality. By celebrating its culture, Gurudev reminded the youth that they belong to a land of beauty and grace. Appreciating local dance, language, and traditions helps heal identity wounds. When global icons acknowledge regional culture, youth feel proud instead of apologetic. Pride creates emotional strength. Gurudev's presence brought a message. Your culture is not separate from spirituality, it's an extension of it. Art of Living's programs often integrate local traditions because culture nurtures belongingness for Kashmiri youth. This message restored dignity. Now, the Vedic perspective views culture or the Samskriti as a bridge between tradition and evolution. Kashmir is historically a seat of Shaivism, scholarship, and mysticism. Its music of Sufi, Sharda, and folk forms reflects centuries of spiritual refinement. By honoring this culture publicly, Gurudev revived the ancient truth that spirituality is inseparable from cultural identity. The youth must know that they are heirs to lineage of poets, sages, and philosophers. When Gurudev applauds Kashmiri elegance and hospitality, he is re-establishing cultural pride. Modernity should expand culture, not weaken it. Recognizing one's identity builds inner stability, which is essential for growth. Gurudev's celebration of Kashmiri culture was not ceremonial, it was restorative. It reminded you that they are custodians of a civilization, not just students chasing jobs. Now, Gurudev mentioned the introspection is necessary for growth. How does self reflection benefit the youth of Kashmir? In fast paced student life, introspection is often missing. Young minds jump from one task to another classes, phones, social media, pressure, expectations. Gurudev brought a moment of pause when he said, Three fingers point toward you. He reminded you to look within. Introspection helps youth and young people to see their strengths, weaknesses, and emotional blind spots. For Kashmiri youth dealing with pressure from family, society, and politics, introspection becomes a grounding force. Through meditation and breathing, the noise in the head settles and the clarity emerges. Students begin to understand why they react, what triggers stress, and what their deeper aspirations are. This clarity reduces confusion, a problem Gurudev specifically addressed. When youth introspect, they stop blaming and start transforming. Now, in the Vedic system, introspection is Atma Vichara, the doorway to wisdom. Kashmir's spiritual heritage includes great masters like Vasu Gupta and Abhinav Gupta, who taught self awareness as the highest practice. Gurudev's teaching aligns perfectly with this lineage. When youth introspect, they reconnect with their inner witness. They discover that problems are temporary, but their inner strength is permanent. Kashmir's youth who have witnessed emotional turbulence benefit greatly from this. Introspection dissolves anger, reduces bias, and increases compassion. It also helps preserve cultural values while embracing modern life. Gurudev's message was a call to awaken the inner light that Kashmir has carried for centuries. Now, Gurudev encouraged youth not to overthink what others think about them. How does this teaching cultivate emotional freedom? One of the biggest mental burdens young people carry today is the fear of judgment. Social media intensifies this fear. Every action, photo, decision, or expression seems to invite commentary. When Gurudev said, "Don't keep worrying about what others think of you," he was freeing students from an invisible cage. Emotional freedom comes when you start living authentically. Overthinking drains energy, lowers creativity, and invites anxiety. In Kashmir, where societal expectations about behavior, appearance, career, and even friendships can be intense, this teaching becomes even more crucial. Gurudev showed students that real confidence grows when your mind stops dancing to the tune of external opinions. In Art of Living courses, youth practice techniques that reduce mental chatter. Once the inner noise subsides, students discover a sense of a self that is independent of validation. This makes them bold, expressive, and emotionally self reliant. Now, the fear of public opinion is described in our scriptures as a lokavasana, a desire for approval that binds the mind. The Gita teaches that one must act with integrity, not for applause. Kashmiri youth, because of the region's sensitive socio-cultural dynamics, often feel watched or judged for every choice they make. This creates hesitation and suppresses talent. Gurudev's teaching restores swatantrata or inner freedom. When you stop worrying about the world's opinions, you step into your dharma with confidence. Ancient Kashmir was a center of intellectual genius because scholars were fearless thinkers, not prisoners of public perception. Gurudev's message reconnects youth to that heritage. Emotional freedom leads to innovation, clarity, and leadership. It helps individuals contribute to society without fear or hesitation. Now, Gurudev spoke beautifully about the connection between breath and the mind. How does this knowledge empower Kashmiri youth in practical life? Jagadish, many students were surprised when Gurudev explained how closely breath and mind are connected. When emotions fluctuate, anger, fear, anxiety, breathing becomes irregular. By learning breathwork practices like deep breathing, pranayama, and Sudarshan Kriya, youth gain control over their mental states. This is extremely practical for Kashmiri students who face academic pressure, competitive exams, emotional stress, and uncertainty. Breathwork increases focus, improves sleep, and sharpens memory. In the Edu Youth Meet, students share testimonies of how even a few minutes of guided breathing or guided meditation in Gurudev's voice relieved tension instantly. Gurudev emphasized that stabilizing the breath stabilizes the mind. This knowledge transforms life daily. Students become calmer during exams, more composed in family situations, and more resilient during challenges. It creates a predictable anchor in an unpredictable world. Now, the breath or the prana is considered sacred in the Vedic tradition. Ancient texts describe breath control as the key to controlling the mind. Kashmir's Shaiva philosophy also highlights the prana shakti as a gateway to expanded consciousness. Gurudev's teaching is not new. It's a revival of ancient science and language that modern youth can understand. Breathwork purifies the subtle body or the sukshma sharira, removing emotional impressions stored over years. For Kashmiri youth who may have witnessed trauma or stress, this is deeply healing. A calm mind makes better decisions, learns faster, and communicates with compassion. Breath becomes a doorway to emotional maturity and spiritual clarity. Gurudev's knowledge empowers youth by giving them mastery over their inner world. Now, Gurudev highlighted that motivation is good, but don't get manipulated. How should youth understand this distinction? Negative, today's youth consume endless content, motivational videos, influencers, speeches, and opinions. While motivation can spark enthusiasm, manipulation hijacks clarity. Gurudev's message is a warning for the times. He wants you to stay inspired but not blindly influenced. In Kashmir, where political, social, and emotional narratives are powerful, this message is essential. Manipulation often comes disguised as inspiration. The difference lies in inner awareness. Motivation empowers, manipulation controls. Through meditation and breathwork, students develop intuition, which becomes a natural shield. Intuition tells them when something is right or wrong for them. Youth learn to evaluate messages instead of absorbing them. Gurudev wants every young person to be a thinker, creator, and leader, not a follower drifting with every emotional wave. Now, in Sanatan Dharma, the faculty that protects against manipulation is Viveka or discernment. It's the ability to distinguish truth from falsehood. Gurudev's message revives this ancient skill. Kashmir's history shows that youth have often been misled by emotional rhetoric. When discernment is strong, manipulation has no power. Motivation rooted in dharma inspires service, growth, and compassion. Manipulation rooted in ego or politics leads to division and confusion. Gurudev's teaching empowers you to rise above reactive emotion. It teaches them to listen to everyone but surrender to no one except their own inner wisdom. This creates responsible citizens who cannot be exploited. Now, Gurudev spoke about the soul being free from sorrow. How does this resonate with the youth of Kashmir? Yeah, when Gurudev said soul free from sorrow, it was more than a spiritual statement. It was a call for emotional liberation. Kashmiri youth often carry inherited and personal sorrow, loss, trauma, and societal pressures. Many feel weighed down by circumstances they did not create but must navigate. Gurudev addresses this directly. True freedom is internal, independent of external situations. Youth who meditate and practice breath awareness experience a shift from reactive sorrow to reflective resilience. Sorrow, when acknowledged and released, becomes a teacher rather than a burden. Gurudev's message encourages students to nurture their inner happiness even amidst challenges. This is not escapism but empowerment. The youth realize that while they cannot control every external event, they can master their inner response. This realization fosters strength, creativity, and optimism, qualities necessary for leadership and nation building. The Vedic philosophy has always emphasized soul centered living. Kashmir's saints and yogis taught that sorrow arises when the mind identifies with temporary events rather than the eternal self. Gurudev's speech echoed this wisdom in a language young people can grasp. By understanding that the soul is beyond grief, youth are encouraged to develop equanimity. In Kashmir, where emotional turbulence is common due to political and social challenges, such teaching is critical. It helps prevent cycles of despair, substance abuse, and frustration. The youth learn to face life with composure, transforming inner sorrow into clarity and compassion. Gurudev's emphasis on soul liberation reconnects students with the timeless principle. Happiness is not external, it is the natural state of a conscious, disciplined mind and heart. Now, Gurudev highlighted five principles of art of living. Why are these principles particularly relevant for Kashmiri youth? Jagadev, the five principles balance in life, acceptance of others, self reliance in thought, forgiveness, and inner awareness form a comprehensive framework for living. In Kashmir, youth face multidimensional stress, academic pressure, family expectations, socio political uncertainty, and identity challenges. These principles provide a holistic approach to tackle these pressures. Balance prevents emotional extremes, acceptance nurtures relationships, self reliance protects against manipulation, forgiveness releases emotional baggage, introspection develops clarity. Gurudev's articulation of these principles at the Edu Youth Meet gives students actionable guidance when implemented through meditation and community engagement. These principles help youth lead fulfilling lives. They develop resilience without alienating their environment and compassion without losing individuality. Gurudev emphasizes that these are not abstract theories, they are tools for daily life. Students left the event with both inspiration and a method to implement it. Now, from a dharmic perspective, These five principles are rooted in Dharma and Yoga. Ancient Kashmir valued emotional intelligence, self discipline, and social harmony. The principles of art of living echo these timeless values but in a modern framework. Young people, especially in conflict affected regions, often struggle with self doubt, impulsiveness, and resentment. By teaching balance, forgiveness, acceptance, and introspection, Gurudev restores inner stability and ethical clarity. These principles not only guide personal growth but also strengthen community cohesion. Kashmir's youth equipped with these principles are better prepared to contribute positively to society, preserving the region's spiritual and cultural heritage while navigating contemporary challenges. Now, how did Gurudev's interaction with the students create a sense of inclusivity and belonging? Gurudev's style of interaction was highly participatory. He invited students on stage, addressed them by name, celebrated their cultural contributions, and acknowledged their intelligence and courage. Such gestures create an immediate sense of belonging. Youth feel recognized not just as students but as individuals with potential and dignity. In Kashmir, where social tensions can create feelings of alienation, this approach was profoundly healing. Gurudev's humor, stories, and poetry allowed students to relax, laugh, and engage authentically. When he asked the audience to raise hands for mistakes or share experiences, it removed hierarchical barriers. The result was a space where everyone felt equal, valued, and empowered to participate. Art of Living programs emphasize such inclusivity because learning thrives when individuals feel safe, seen, and connected. Now, Vedic wisdom also emphasizes the samanvaya, harmony and alignment among individuals. By engaging students, respecting local culture, and validating their emotions, Gurudev embodied this principle. Inclusivity is not just about physical presence, it's about emotional and spiritual recognition. Kashmiri youth, historically sensitive to exclusion and marginalization, responded deeply to this acknowledgement. By fostering belonging, Gurudev empowered them to step beyond fear, judgment, and social comparison. When youth feel part of a community that respects them, their potential unfolds. The event reinforces the dharmic idea that collective well being emerges when every individual's dignity is honored, thereby nurturing leadership, compassion, and societal responsibility. Now, Gurudev stressed that smiles are the birthright of everyone. How can this perspective impact the mental health of Kashmiri youth? When Gurudev said that smiles are everyone's birthright, it was a subtle yet powerful reminder of inherent joy. Kashmiri youth growing up amidst socio-political challenges often carry emotional burdens. Smiling is not merely an expression, it's a psychological and physiological act that releases tension, activates the positive neural pathways, and reduces stress hormones. Gurudev's message reframed happiness as an inherent right, not a reward for achievement. This perspective empowers you to reclaim emotional space even in adversity. The audience responded visibly, laughter, nods, and spontaneous participation, signaling that they resonated with this idea deeply. Through art of living practices like Sudarshan Kriya and guided meditation, youth learn to maintain this internal smile consistently, fostering resilience, creativity, and social optimism. It shifts focus from external pressures to internal well being. Now, in Vedic philosophy, the joy or the ananda is considered the natural state of the soul. Kashmir's cultural history, from Sufi poets to Shaiva mystics, celebrates happiness as sacred even amidst external struggles. Gurudev's assertion that smiles are a birthright is aligned with this timeless wisdom. Mental health improves when youth recognize their inner right to joy, reducing anxiety and feelings of helplessness. Smiles create a feedback loop. Emotional positivity enhances social interactions, builds trust, and strengthens communities. For Kashmiri youth, this principle becomes a practical tool to counter fear, stress, and societal pressures, nurturing both personal and collective well being. Gurudev's emphasis transforms an abstract spiritual principle into a lived psychological benefit. Now, how did Gurudev integrate practical life skills with spiritual wisdom in his message? Gurudev seamlessly blended spiritual wisdom with practical skills. Principles like maintaining balance, introspection, forgiveness, and self confidence are spiritual at the core but have direct applications in daily life. For instance, when he spoke about not being a football of others' opinions, it was both a spiritual advice, self mastery, and practical guidance for decision making. When he spoke about breath and meditation, he linked it to stress management, clarity of thought, and productivity. Kashmiri youth left with tangible tools how to handle exams, social pressures, relationships, and career dilemmas. without losing sight of inner growth. This integration transforms spirituality from a theoretical concept into an applied life skill. Gurudev's methods emphasize experiential learning. Students experience a shift in energy, confidence, and clarity, which solidifies understanding far more than mere instruction. Now, from a dharmic viewpoint, the fusion of knowledge or jnana and action or karma is central. Gurudev's approach reflects a Vedic principle wisdom should inform action. Kashmir's youth historically oriented toward academics and survival skills often misstructured spiritual tools by framing introspection, balance, and forgiveness as actionable life skills. Gurudev made spirituality directly relevant. He bridged the ancient dharma with contemporary challenges, academic competition, emotional stress, and social pressure. Students learn that self discipline, mental resilience, and ethical conduct are not abstract virtues, but practical competencies essential for personal growth and societal contribution. This fusion empowers you to lead lives of purpose and clarity. Now, how did Gurudev's presence and words create hope for a violence free society? Gurudev's consistent emphasis on a society free from violence resonated profoundly with Kashmiri youth. His speech connected individual transformation with collective well being. When he spoke of non-violence, inner peace, and forgiveness, students felt inspired not just to improve themselves but also to influence their families and communities positively. He clarified that non-violence begins with inner stability, balanced minds, controlled emotions, and compassionate hearts. By practicing meditation, breathwork, and introspection, youth can reduce anger, fear, and reactive behavior. For Kashmir, where political and social turbulence has affected generations, this message of nonviolence is transformative. Youth left with the vision that each individual can contribute to societal peace, creating a ripple effect that goes beyond personal gain. Now, Vedic texts consistently link inner peace or antar shanti with the social harmony or bahir shanti. Gurudev's address was a practical application of this philosophy. Violence is not just external, it starts as agitation, resentment, and misunderstanding within minds. Kashmiri youth, having witnessed unrest, often internalize anger or fear. Gurudev taught that cultivating inner balance, forgiveness, and compassion is a prerequisite for reducing societal violence. His presence conveyed hope. Change is possible when youth embrace self mastery and dharmic principles. By reinforcing the moral and spiritual potential of every student, Gurudev instilled the confidence that a non-violent, harmonious Kashmir is achievable. It is a reminder that collective transformation begins with empowered individuals. Now, Gurudev emphasized self introspection as the path to personal growth. How can Kashmiri youth practically implement this in their daily lives? Gurudev's emphasis on self introspection or Atma Vichara provides youth with a practical roadmap to self awareness and personal growth. For Kashmiri students, we often face academic stress, social pressures, and emotional turbulence. Introspection becomes a tool to navigate life consciously rather than reactively. Practically, it begins with a few minutes of quiet reflection every day, journaling thoughts, observing emotions without judgment, and reviewing actions and reactions. Meditation and breathing exercises taught in Art of Living programs amplify this process, creating mental clarity and emotional stability. By analyzing why certain situations provoke anger, fear, or sadness, youth identify patterns in thought and behavior. This awareness empowers them to make conscious choices, enhancing self confidence and resilience. Introspection also improves decision making, strengthens relationship, and aligns daily actions with long term goals. At the Edu Youth Meet, Gurudev's words inspired students to see mistakes not as failures but as feedback for growth. When youth actively practice introspection, they develop emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and self discipline, all of which are essential for thriving in Kashmir's unique social cultural environment. Now, in Vedic tradition, introspection is considered essential for moksha or liberation and ethical living. Kashmir's spiritual heritage with sages like Abhinav Gupta emphasize dhyana and reflective inquiry as prerequisites for wisdom. Gurudev's modern articulation of introspection is practical and accessible. It encourages you to examine internal motives, cultivate self discipline, and overcome ego driven responses. For a generation exposed to rapid social and digital influences, introspection creates inner stability, preventing impulsive decisions or emotional manipulation. When the Kashmiri youth consistently integrate introspection into their daily routine, they align personal growth with societal harmony, embodying dharmic principles while building leadership and social responsibility. Gurudev's guidance transforms introspection from a theoretical practice into a life changing habit, creating empowered, aware, and compassionate individuals. Now, what lasting impact did Gurudev's Edu Youth Meet leave on Kashmir's youth, according to both art of living and Vedic perspectives? The lasting impact was multidimensional. Gurudev inspired youth to see themselves as powerful, capable, and inherently joyful beings. Students left with the practical tools, breathing techniques, meditation, forgiveness exercises, and introspection habits that can be applied immediately in daily life. More importantly, he instilled a mindset of resilience, emotional intelligence, and self reliance. Kashmiri youth experienced firsthand the power of collective energy, positive intention, and a shared vision for a peaceful, drug free, and violence free society. Many expressed renewed hope, increased motivation, and a sense of belonging. The meeting was a reminder that individual transformation catalyzes societal transformation. By feeling supported, valued, and inspired, students were empowered to become change makers in their families, communities, and the region at large. From a dharmic perspective, the meeting reconnected youth with timeless spiritual principles rooted in Kashmir's cultural and philosophical heritage. The emphasis on self discipline, balance, introspection, forgiveness, and acceptance reflects ancient wisdom. Now, contextualized for modern challenges, Gurudev's message bridged the gap between traditional dharma and contemporary life, making it relevant and actionable. The event reinforced ethical awareness, emotional maturity, and social responsibility among participants. Kashmir's youth were not merely spectators, they became active participants in our vision of a harmonious society. By integrating dharmic values with practical life skills, the meeting laid the foundation for a generation capable of transforming both themselves and their environment, ensuring that Kashmir's cultural richness and spiritual potential continue to flourish. Jai Gurudev.